The election system in America is fascinating, right? We act like we have one system. The reality is we have 50 completely different systems. And in the primaries, it's almost like we have 100 different systems, right? One for each state and two for each party. And so in states like North Carolina, they put it all together. In South Carolina, the parties control, and they're able to run a separate primary for the Republican side and the Democratic side. We see something very similar going on in Iowa just the other week. Yeah, so she seemed to have a lot of momentum, Nikki Haley did, going into Iowa, but things didn't work out so well once the caucus totals were counted, right? She ended up in third place. She won one county, and the one county she won was by a single vote. So then going into New Hampshire, we expect to see Haley doing a little bit better. New Hampshire is a state where the independent voters can choose their own adventure when it comes to the primary. So if you're a left-leaning, perhaps independent in New Hampshire, you could decide to vote in the Republican primary. Those kind of independent voters, not real fond of Donald Trump. They're a lot more likely to prefer Nikki Haley. So we expect to see a little bump coming for Nikki Haley in New Hampshire. And then all eyes are going to go south. All eyes are going to go to the state of South Carolina, to Nikki Haley's home state. From one perspective, you might think she'd do well there. She was born there. She was raised there. She was governor of that state. She still lives in the state of South Carolina. On the other hand, Donald Trump is extremely popular in South Carolina among Republicans. So even though it's Nikki Haley's home state, we expect to see that momentum come to a screeching halt in South Carolina. Expect to see Donald Trump perform very well. And unfortunately for the Nikki Haley campaign, probably the realistic end to her run for president. So in terms of the Democratic primary, there's just not much to see here. So Joe Biden is the only candidate on the ballot in a number of states, including North Carolina. And when there are other candidates on the Democratic presidential ballot, they tend to be folks who just don't have much chance to win. So really the only surefire thing in this presidential election is that Joe Biden is going to win every state that he appears on the ballot in the primary. Joe Biden will be the Democratic nominee come November. North Carolina is going to be really interesting in the primary and in the general election. And so North Carolina's primary this time falls on Super Tuesday, right? So this is traditionally a day where a whole lot of the southern states get together, although it have their primaries, although Super Tuesday has expanded since then to include much of the rest of the country. It's going to come after South Carolina, after New Hampshire, after Iowa, after Nevada. So we're going to have some winnowing that happens there. Donald Trump is certainly going to be the heavy favorite going into North Carolina. We expect to see him win. Anything can happen, but the smart money is going to be on Donald Trump in North Carolina. What remains to be seen is whether North Carolina provides the end of the campaign for, let's say, Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis. They'll probably stay in through Super Tuesday. If they get walloped on Super Tuesday, that could be the time they decide to write it off. And North Carolina is going to be ground zero. Of all the states that Donald Trump won in 2020, his margin in North Carolina was the smallest of any of them. So there was a lot made about the fact that Georgia flipped blue, voted for Joe Biden. North Carolina stayed red, went for Donald Trump. The reality is both of those states were on just the other side of the razor's edge from one another. They were both very close. They're both very, very purple. In the last election, Governor Roy Cooper in North Carolina, the Democrat, won re-election at the same time that Joe Biden lost the presidential election. So we're seeing a state that has a history of ticket splitting. We're seeing a state that is increasingly purple. We're seeing a state that is unpredictable. And that means that we're going to be a state that sees a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of attention, frankly, a lot of politics. I've got no inside knowledge here, and people have certainly, with a lot more money than me, have gone bankrupt trying to predict Donald Trump's outcomes or his actions. But in this case, I think it's very possible that a Ramaswamy or a Haley, perhaps even a DeSantis, could end up being Donald Trump's vice presidential candidate. It's also possible it could be somebody like Elise Stefanik from New York, who's clearly making a play. So we don't know, but I would definitely not rule out any of Ramaswamy, Haley, DeSantis. Frankly, I wouldn't rule out anybody from the MAGA wing of the Republican Party.